Monica Reynolds, a senior Army officer, is on her way home after a long day of service. Dressed in uniform, she drives through a quiet suburban road, thinking about nothing but getting home safely. But fate has other plans. Flashing lights appear in her rearview mirror. A routine traffic stop? Or something more? She slows down, signals, and pulls over. The air feels heavy. As she rolls down her window, Officer Bradley Watts approaches. His face is hard, his stance aggressive. License and registration. His voice is cold. Monica, calm and collected, hands over her documents. But Watts isn't satisfied. Something about her seems to set him off. He orders her to step out of the car. She hesitates. Not out of fear, but because she knows her rights. "Officer, may I ask why?" His hand moves toward his holster. The tension rises. A bystander starts recording. What happens next will change both their lives forever. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. If you're watching right now, drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. Now, Monica steps out of the car slowly, her hands visible, her movements controlled. She's been trained for high-pressure situations, but this is different. This isn't a battlefield. This is home. And yet, she can feel the weight of danger pressing down on her. Officer Watts grips his gun, eyes locked onto her as if she's a threat. Face the car. Hands on the hood. She exhales, steady. "Officer, I've done nothing wrong. I am Lieutenant Colonel Monica Reynolds, United States Army." For a brief moment, Watts hesitates. The title, the uniform, something registers in his mind. But it's not enough to stop him. His grip tightens. "I said, hands on the hood." A few feet away, the bystander with the phone keeps recording. A murmur rises from a small crowd that has started to gather. Monica slowly turns her head, making eye contact with Watts. "Why are you treating me like a criminal?" His face darkens. "I'll ask the questions." "Do it now." Just as she places her hands on the car, another squad car pulls up. Sergeant Daniel Ruiz steps out, surveying the scene. His eyes flicker between Monica and Watts, then land on the gun in Watts' hand. "Watts, what's going on here?" Ruiz asks, his tone firm but calm. "She was resisting," Watts snaps. Ruiz looks at Monica, then at the growing crowd. He sees the phone recording. He sees the uniform. He sees the truth. "Put the gun down," Ruiz says. Watts doesn't move. The tension stretches, suffocating, unrelenting. Monica, steady as ever, speaks again. "Sergeant, I am unarmed. I have complied with every command. This is unnecessary." Ruiz takes a step closer. "Watts, put the gun down. Now." For the first time, doubt flickers in Watts' eyes. The crowd, the camera, the uniform, it's all closing in on him. His grip loosens, his stance shifts. And then, finally, the gun lowers. But the damage is already done. The
Monica
days that
Reynolds,
follow are
a
a
senior
whirlwind.
Army officer,
The video
is on her
spreads
way
like
home
wildfire
after a long day
shared
of
across
service.
social media.
Dressed
Picked
in
up
uniform,
by news outlets,
she drives through a
dissected by
quiet suburban
commentators.
road.
The
Thinking
public
about
reacts
nothing
with
but
outrage.
getting home safely.
Some call
But
for
fate
Officer
has
Watts'
other
immediate
plans.
firing.
Flashing
Others demand
lights
deeper
appear in her
reform within the
rearview
police
mirror.
department.
A routine
Monica,
traffic stop,
despite the media
or something
storm,
more,
keeps her focus.
She slows down,
She files a
signals,
formal complaint
and pulls over.
The Army
The air
issues a
feels
statement
heavy.
of support
As she rolls down
recognizing
her
her
window,
service and
Officer
condemning
Bradley
the incident.
Watts approaches.
Veterans groups
His face
rally
is
behind
hard,
her,
his
speaking
stance
out against
aggressive.
the treatment
License
of a decorated
and
officer.
registration.
At the police
His
department,
voice is cold.
an internal investigation
Monica,
begins.
calm and collected,
Watts is placed
hands
on
over her
administrative
documents.
leave, But the
pressure
Watts
isn't
mounting.
satisfied.
Protesters
Something
gather
about
outside
her
the
seems
precinct
to set him
holding
off.
signs that
He
read
orders her
justice
to
for
step
Lieutenant
out of the
Colonel
car.
Reynolds, and enough
She
is enough.
hesitates.
Inside,
Not out of
Watts
fear,
sits in a
but
tense
because she
meeting
knows
with
her
his
rights.
superiors.
Officer,
He shifts
may I
uncomfortably
ask
in
why?
his chair as the
His
chief
hand
of police.
moves toward
An
his
older black
holster.
man named Charles
The tension
Bennett watches
rises.
him in silence.
A bystander
The video
starts
plays on
recording.
a screen in the
What
room.
happens next
Monica's
will change
calm
both
voice.
their lives forever.
Watts' aggression.
Before we
The
continue,
moment he pulls
make
his
sure
gun,
to subscribe
the
to the
crowd
channel
watching,
and hit that
the camera
notification
recording,
bell so you don't
when
miss
the
what
video
happens
ends.
next. The silence
If you're
lingers.
watching right now,
Bennett
drop a
finally
comment
speaks.
and let us know where you're
Explain
tuning in
yourself.
from.
Watts
Now,
clears his throat.
Monica steps
She
out
was
of the
being
car slowly,
non-compliant.
her hands visible,
Bennett's eyes
her
narrow.
movements controlled.
She identified
She's
herself.
been trained for
She was
high-pressure
in uniform.
situations.
She
But
followed
this is
your
different.
instructions.
This isn't
And
a
you still pulled your
battlefield.
gun on her.
This is home.
Watts shifts again.
And yet,
She can
I
feel
thought
the
she
weight
might
of
have had a
danger
weapon
pressing down on
Bennett
her.
leans forward.
Officer Watts
Did
grips
she
his
reach
gun,
for anything?
eyes locked onto
No,
her as if
but-
she's a threat.
But nothing.
Face the car.
You saw a black woman
Hands
in a
on
nice
the hood.
car, and you
She
assumed she
exhales.
was a threat.
Steady.
You didn't
Officer,
see the rank.
I've done nothing
You didn't
wrong.
see the uniform.
I am Lieutenant
You didn't
Colonel
see
Monica
a decorated
Reynolds,
officer
United
who has served
States
this
Army.
country.
For a
You
brief
only
moment,
saw what you wanted
Watts
to see.
hesitates.
Watts'
The
face
title,
reddens,
the
but
uniform,
he says nothing.
something registers
Bennett
in his
sighs,
mind, shaking his
but
head.
it's not enough
You've
to
been
stop
on our
him.
radar.
His
Watts.
grip tightens.
Too many complaints.
I said,
Hands
too
on
many
the hood.
misunderstandings.
A few feet away,
But this time,
the bystander
it's
with
different.
the phone keeps
The whole
recording.
country is
A
watching.
murmur rises
Meanwhile,
from a small crowd
Monica
that
meets
has
with a
started
civil
to
rights
gather.
attorney.
Monica
Not because
slowly
she
turns
wants
her
revenge,
head,
she
making
doesn't.
eye contact
But
with
because
Watts.
she knows accountability
Why are you treating me
matters.
like a criminal?
Change only happens
His
when
face
people
darkens.
stand up.
I'll ask
At a
the
press
questions.
conference, she
Do
speaks
it now.
carefully but powerfully.
Just as she places
This
her
isn't
hands
just
on the
about
car,
me.
another
This
squad
is about
car
the
pulls
countless
up.
others who
Sergeant
didn't have
Daniel
cameras to
Ruiz
prove what
steps
happened
out,
to them,
surveying
the
the
people
scene.
whose names
His
we don't
eyes
know,
flicker between
the
Monica
ones who
and
never
Watts,
got justice,
then land on the
It
gun
has
in
to
Watts'
stop.
hand. The investigation
What's
concludes
going on here?
faster than expected.
Ruiz asks.
The evidence
His tone
is
firm but
overwhelming.
calm.
Watts
She
is
was
terminated
resisting.
from the
Watts
force.
snaps.
The police
Ruiz
department
looks at
announces
Monica,
new training
then at the growing
protocols,
crowd.
more
He
accountability
sees
measures.
the phone recording.
It's not enough.
He sees
not
the
yet,
uniform,
but it's a step.
He sees the
Watts,
truth.
now unemployed
Put the gun
and
down,
publicly
Ruiz
disgraced,
says.
gives an interview,
Watts doesn't
trying to
move.
justify his
The
actions.
tension stretches.
I was just doing my job,
Suffocating, he
unrelenting.
But few
Monica,
people believe
steady
him.
as ever,
His name
speaks
becomes
again.
synonymous with
Sergeant,
racial profiling.
I am unarmed.
For Monica,
I have complied
life
with
moves
every
forward.
command.
She continues
This is
her
unnecessary,
service,
but she also
Ruiz
takes on a
takes
new
a step
mission:
closer.
advocacy.
Watts,
Speaking
put
at
the gun
events,
down.
mentoring
Now,
young officers
for the first time,
working to
doubt
ensure
flickers
that
in
no
Watts'
one else
eyes.
has to go
The
through
crowd,
what she did.
the camera,
One evening,
the uniform,
months later,
it's all closing
she's
in
driving
on him.
home again.
His grip
The same
loosens.
road, his stance
The same
shifts.
quiet night.
And then,
But this
finally,
time, when
the
gun
flashing
lowers,
lights appear behind
but
her,
the damage
her
is
heart
already
doesn't
done.
race. The officer approaches, young, respectful. Good evening, Just wanted to let you know one of your taillights is out. She nods. Thank you, officer. As he walks away, she watches him in the mirror. She wonders, maybe, just maybe, things are starting to change. Ruiz steps between them, his voice measured but firm. Lieutenant Colonel Reynolds, are you okay? Monica nods, but her eyes remain on Watts. He looks rattled now, as if reality is finally sinking in. The weight of the crowd's silent judgment, the camera still recording, the uniform he chose to ignore, it all presses down on him. Ruiz turns to Watts. We'll talk later. Right now, you're done here. Watts clenches his jaw, his hands curling into fists. You're done. Ruiz's voice leaves no room for argument. Monica straightens. I'd like to file a report. Ruiz nods. You'll have that opportunity. The bystander steps forward, holding up the phone. I've got it all on video. The murmurs in the crowd grow louder. Some shake their heads. Others glare at Watts as he finally turns away, walking stiffly to his patrol car. His career, his future, hanging by a thread. Monica exhales. Not in relief, because there's no relief in moments like these. Only exhaustion.
Only the knowledge that this could have ended differently. As Ruiz speaks with Monica, another officer takes statements from the witnesses. The process begins. But for Monica, this isn't just about her. It never was. It's about what happens next. About making sure this moment isn't forgotten. And as the red and blue lights flash around her, she knows this fight isn't over. Months have passed, but the impact of that night still lingers. Monica Reynolds has become more than just a soldier, she's a voice for those who never got the chance to speak. Her story sparked national conversations, pushing for stronger accountability in law enforcement. She's invited to speak at panels, community meetings, even a congressional hearing on police reform. She doesn't hesitate. She shares her experience, not with anger, but with purpose. She doesn't just talk about what happened to her, she talks about the bigger picture. The broken trust. The fear that Black men and women feel during routine traffic stops. The need for real change. Meanwhile, Officer Bradley Watts disappears from public view. He tries to rebuild his life, but his name carries a stain he can't wash away. No police department will hire him. His former colleagues distance themselves. The world has moved on, but for him, the consequences remain. At the police department, new training programs are rolled out. Officers are required to take de-escalation and bias training. Some welcome the change. Others grumble about political correctness. But the message is clear: what happened that night won't be ignored. Monica continues her service in the Army, but her path has expanded. She mentors young cadets, preparing them not just for military life, but for leadership in a world that still has its flaws. She reminds them of the power of their voices, the importance of standing up. One evening, she visits a community center where young Black men and women have gathered to hear her speak. They listen intently as she shares her story, asking questions, sharing their own fears. One young woman raises her hand. "Do you ever wish you had just stayed quiet? Let it go?" Monica smiles, shaking her head. No. Because silence never changed anything. As she leaves the event, she gets into her car, taking a deep breath. The road ahead is still long, but she knows she's not walking it alone. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Stories like this need to be told, and your support helps make that happen. If you've made it this far, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Let's keep this conversation going.